to today's webinar on From Authority to Influence, Navigating the Power of Strategic Leadership Communication. Thank you all for taking your time out and joining us for this interactive session, which I'm sure would prove to be a very exciting one. It will be full of a lot of new inputs and info on strategic communication and leadership, right? So I would hand over the session to Mr. Darius Mehta, who is the founding director of VC Now. VC Now being the partners with IIM Calcutta towards delivering the program. Over to Mr. Darius Mehta.
Right. So thank you, Shreyashi, and a warm welcome to everyone for joining in on this Saturday afternoon. Thank you for taking your time off. So basically, we are going to talk about, from authority to influence, navigating the power of strategic leadership communication, and giving you insights about the communication strategy program, for corporate leaders from IIM Calcutta. I think all of us, in the forum, I'm sure, think that we can all communicate very well, actually. And, that's why we are here today, right? But, I mean, communication has various levels of, impact. And while we all think that, we can communicate, and if we kind of, look into the definition of communication, it is typically eliciting a response from the participant or from a respondent, which is the classical kind of, definition of communication. This program actually kind of takes it to the next level, where it goes on to say that, eliciting a response that you want from the other person, right? And how is that done? I mean, as managers, as leaders, as we kind of, go ahead in our career, very often, people look up to a leader in terms of everything that he says, the way he behaves, the way he talks, what he talks, etc. Right? And that becomes very important. And as a leader, who has to orchestrate, so many aspects of an organization, be it vision, mission, goals, objectives, managing conflicts, negotiating, influencing, inspiring, and and all this, can be done unless you're a great communicator, unless you inspire people to communicate and make an impact on them, you really wouldn't kind of achieve the level of charismatic leadership which some of the top leaders have, right? So here is a program, I mean, which is unlike any other communication program, right? In terms of normally people think of communication programs as a public speaking program where you think that you're being able to be told how to talk or how to speak. This program goes way beyond that, and the focus is not, while how to do that is always there, but the focus is not on the how, but the focus is on what the thought behind communication, the content strategy, the content architecture, which is what is normally called the thought behind communication, and what do you communicate and how do you communicate that to not only make an impact, but to influence, to inspire and get things done. Because at the end, the bottom line is, as a leader, as a manager, as an executive who's orchestrating various aspects of an organization, you want to get things done, and that too without being overtly, powerful, or without being overtly open about what you're saying. It's just about, I mean, one of the modules in the program is the power of nudge, right? So without being overtly visible about communicating something, how do you nudge people to take decisions, right? So this is a very interesting program, and very different, very unique program, which cuts across business communication, leadership communication, corporate communication, brand communication, analytics in communication, new age communication, right? How do you, argue, how do you manage conflict, how do you negotiate effectively, and lots more science. So typically, normally we think that leaders communication is an art. I mean, let me tell you, this is the science behind the art of communication, and what the faculties have done in terms of looking at various frameworks and culling it down and making it simple, where you can actually apply it in day-to-day scenarios. And that's the another beauty of this program, where you can actually relate to your day-to-day scenarios. And if you've been through this program, or while you're going through this program, you'll have a lot of aha moments, where you will see that, okay, this is what I used to do earlier, but now after going through this program and after having these kind of frameworks in my mind, this is the way I think I can pause, think, act, judge, and communicate. So I think without much ado, let me kind of introduce the faculties. We have Professor Nandita Roy, who teaches communication at IIM Calcutta. Her research is in multidisciplinary approaches, which is of communication, which is in the intersection of philosophy, technology, gender studies, storytelling. I mean, I missed out storytelling. So storytelling is also one of the modules, and with new media, and with special emphasis on video games. Her academic training is in qualitative research methods in humanities and in new media, coupled with experience in the media and communication industry, which informs her understanding of philosophy, ethics, gender, and media. She seeks to better understand how these interactions and areas can help create a more diverse, inclusive, and ethical business environment. Dr. Roy's teaching philosophy is to inculcate the students a sense of inquisitiveness and joy in learning. And I can tell you, throughout the program, you're going to kind of see that happening. The pedagogy used is got elements of game-based learning, contextualizing theoretical ideas for application in business contexts, and bridging the gap between theory and practice. Dr. Nandita Roy has actually worked at the Indian Institute of Management, Lucknow, and before that, she was with the National Geographic Channel in India. Let me also introduce Professor Pragyan Rath. She's also a professor in IIM Calcutta and she's been researching in visual verbal representations in a literary genre called ekphrasis, and holds a PhD from the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay. Her research publications in national and international journals focus on visual culture, communication analytics, and language games. Dr. Rath teaches problem-solving techniques, advanced analytical skills in corporate communications across all programs in IIM Calcutta. She's developing strategic communication as research and industry-focused expertise through various authored collaborations, of which a few include communication strategies for corporate leaders, corporate communication, new insights into prognostic data analytics in corporate communications. So I think I've said enough, and I would like to hand over to Professor Nandita Roy. Over to you, Professor, to take over. Thank you. You'll need to unmute. Yeah.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. And Darius, thank you for that very kind introduction. Welcome to this webinar, where I think we are talking about how to go from authority to influence. Something's been happening in the last week. It is quite interesting. Many of you would have heard of this. I think everyone has heard of it and also used. Some of you have used this product. It's called ChatGPT. And all is not well in ChatGPT's business landscape. So the CEO, Sam Altman, was fired by the board last week. So you can see the board exerting its authority. And just 2 days ago, because all 95% of the employees said that they will quit and they will join Microsoft unless the board resigns and brings back Sam Altman. And that is exactly what happened. The board had to resign, and the last thing they did before resigning was to get Sam Altman back. Of course, there are many layers to how this whole story has been unfolding, and it's quite interesting to see this the intersection of tech and business. But a very rudimentary, perhaps, understanding or rudimentary introduction to the difference between authority and influence. And that is perhaps one of the things about communication when this program, the way it is designed, and what we want to do, Professor Rath and I, when we have thought of the modules of the program. As Teresa already very articulately mentioned, that we are, one of the big differentiators of this program is it's not a skill-based program. If you think that joining this program will help you to instantly train you to speak better or do something to your diction or some things like that, that's not the program. What this program is to look into communication through different perspectives. So we bring in, it is a very multidisciplinary program. We bring in ideas from critical humanities, ideas from technology, ideas from video games, etc., to understand. And this I like the usage of this word, rather than the overt elements of communication, we are trying to, perhaps, should I use this word, covert elements of communication. We are trying to get slightly deeper into it and see what it means, how do we influence or persuade. And also there is increasingly, as we see in the world, there's this emphasis on, of course, we need to get things done, right? But if everyone wants to get things done, who will listen and do the things? So one of the things is understanding. I think this program also fundamentally helps you look at the world, look at things happening around you, and develop a deeper and perhaps a slightly more critical understanding, a layered understanding of what is happening around you, so that you can frame your response, you can frame how you will react to it. A lot of communication is not about going out there and just saying things, but reacting to what is happening around you in a world mired with conflict and war and genocide. So it's now more than ever important that we understand narratives. How are narratives being built? How are they being framed? What kind of narratives are at play and at work, which will help us negotiate maybe perhaps our lives in a slightly, I wouldn't just use the word better, but not just better, but perhaps in a more thoughtful manner, to think about the world, to speak about the world. When it comes to business, now, of course, this is IIM Calcutta is a business school, and when we design these programs for executives, for people who have at least 8 years of experience in the industry, what you are bringing into the classroom is your experience and understanding of the industry, and what we hope to give back to the classroom and learn from you in the whole process as well is the changing landscapes, how people would communicate, let's say, a decade or two ago, and given at the rate the technology has evolved, why should you even spend money and learn stuff about communication when you can ask ChatGPT to write your emails and perhaps design your campaigns as well? So why do this is perhaps, I would have thought it if I were on the other side. One of the reasons is that with the more inflection of technology into human communication, the more a need for specialized understandings. So that is the value. Increasingly, as the more generalized tasks would perhaps be automated, how are you going to still remain relevant if everyone, if you know, a computer can write your basic email, plan your marketing campaign, frame what you should tell your team? That is precisely the reason why we need to sort of level up and specialize our understanding of things. So I think that's a broad overview of why we do this program. Professor Rath and I, in our discussions, etc., we are quite, we keep thinking, and we keep, in the last 2 years, we have added, we have changed, we have tweaked the modules, considering what is happening in the general business and management landscape. Finally, I would just end with the thing that, this, everyone will say that what one is offering is different. Everyone will say that what one is offering is the best. I mean, and I'm sure that there are multiple programs which are talking about communication in the country, outside the country, plenty of online programs as well. However, the way that, again, this has been customized and designed is one big differentiation. And again, to underline it, again, to highlight it, this is not a skill-based program. It is a program for a deeper, more effective understanding of things around you, and how that understanding will help and will inform the way you interact. I would ask Professor Rath, request her to talk a bit about the modules.
Right, thank you. Yeah. So the authority to mute or unmute was with somebody else. So I had to communicate. So this is already in practice. First and foremost, thank you, Darais and VC Now, Shreyashi as well, for the generous introduction and for the tremendous support of VC Now on this particular program, right, from IIM Calcutta. And also thank you to my colleague, Dr. Roy, for bringing out all the differentiations that this particular program offers. I think one of the most important points that was highlighted by Dr. Roy is essentially about the changing landscapes. See, we are talking about leadership and we are talking about communication in 2023. And from 2023, the movement is going to be 2024, 25, 26. We're going to only move into future. And as the rest of the landscape seem to be stating and discussing or influencing, right? There is going to be a lot of technology, good and bad of it, but that discussion will continue more and more with automation and AI and things like that, right? There is also going to be a lot of policy from the government and other organizations. There is going to be a lot of political rest and unrest, as you can see that's happening in the world, right? There is going to be this whole thing about, legacy firms trying to rediscover themselves and be more and more relatable, and at the same time, newer startups and newer kind of organizations growing. Already in the market, you can see there's a requirement of chief technology officers in non-tech spaces like manufacturing industries, right? So somebody with tech skills need not have to end up in Google, right? You might end up in Bata trying to, do digital transformation and things like that. So in this whole world of flux, right, when we are going to come in with a leadership course where the spike is on communication. So what is it that executives with more than 8 years of experience over and beyond that would be expecting? that is how, and that is the space from which the thinking has been happening, and this particular course has been growing. And I just want to also add that since the last 3 seasons of this particular course, I don't know whether to call them students or participants or contributors, right? All of them have helped us get the course to be more and more mature and more relatable to the world of today, to the needs and requirements of today, and to the world and need and requirements of tomorrow, right? And of course, borrowing from the past as well. So keeping that in mind, right? What we are generally offering is, which is something that Professor Roy has been saying it again and again and again, that the differentiation point about this particular course is it's not a skill-based course. It's more in terms of understanding the changing landscapes and how they inform your decision-making process, in which you decide what kind of skills you need to have, what kind of skills you have, and what more skills you should be having, right? It is in that particular world that we are going to operate, and we are bringing in this particular course with its different modules into that particular space. So one of the most important things, and this is a very typical B school thing to say, a very business school thing to say, when you have leadership, you cannot forego the vocabulary of strategy. So leadership essentially means you strategize, and when you strategize, right, that means it's a very informed decision. It's thought through, it's planned. And how do you think through and plan? Of course, you do research. And what do you do research about? You're an organization in a market, so of course it involves market research. Hence, communication strategies so help you lead, right? And what one of the major modules of this course is going to do for you is get you more and more exposed to, get you more and more introduced to, get you more and more aware of, and leverage the various kinds of communication strategies available for a very versatile market setup. Right? It's for different kinds of industries. It's not one particular kind of industry that the strategy is meant for. Hence, we call it a toolkit. Right? It's for you to use, for you to leverage, for you to think through when you are taking decisions, and when you're deciding what kind of communication are you going to develop for a particular space, for a particular requirement, and for a particular condition. So this is our starting point, right? This is the fabric on which the entire course is built, which is communication strategy. From communication strategy, of course, we move to what is very popularly considered pitch, and we call it a sales pitch. In fact, we don't call it, it's been called ever since, right? So it's a sales pitch, but through what we would like to bring into the space that is called impactful argumentation. So generally, persuasion is more of a common terminology used, but argumentation, right, which is not necessarily just the legal argumentation done, argumentation and counter argumentation, how do you argue through a particular situation and help bolster your pitch for whichever audience and for whichever product and service that you are developing the pitch for. That is where this particular module plays an important role. And in doing so, the differentiating factor of this particular module is the use of behavioral economics and the term or the definition which is borrowed from behavioral economics, and that is nudge. And Mr. Darius, right in the beginning, did talk about nudge. He did talk about covert, not overt. Dr. Roy again mentioned about covert and not overt. So how do you nudge an audience towards a particular kind of behavior that you want them to have for a certain product and service that you are kind of bringing into the market? So there's a sales pitch, which is a very traditional thing to do. And in a sales pitch, you are arguing for something or maybe against something, which is again a very traditional thing to do. But when you bring in the nudge framework, right, the traditional thing starts becoming more updated. in the contemporary market, which is more about behaviors as much as it is about technology. So you have communication strategy, you have nudge strategy and sales pitch, from which we move to the next important module for this particular kind of program. This is called public speaking. But it's not just about public speaking in the sense of, did you get your grammar right? We are not very worried about your grammar. We should be, or we should not be, is a different point. But however, more than your grammatical skills, what we are looking for, or what we intend to get discussed in the classroom, is how do you develop the content for your pitch. That's called crafting a public narrative. See, narrative is one thing. A public narrative, that means a narrative that goes out to the world, is of course going to be very, very different from a narrative which is internal to your organization. So the internal part is the strategy. What goes out is the finished product or service. So similarly, the pitch is a finished product or service that goes out because it is going to have some kind of impact. And there's just one more tweaking to that. We call it crafting a contemporary public narrative. You're going to talk today's language. This is 2023. Now, of course, you have many generations. You have a Gen Z. You have lots of notions of woke and unwoke. You have a lot of right-wing, left-wing happening, right? There's a lot of gender and genders. There's a lot of sustainabilities and disruptions and ESGs. So one has to be very, very particular and sensitive in the way one talks today, and not just decoratively, but meaningfully, right? And sensitive here, I do not mean politically correct. Sensitive here means that's the approach required for that particular space, because that's the respect we need to give to a particular space, meaningfully again, right? So all of that comes into public speaking. So this is public speaking rehashed 2023 and forward version, if I may say. So that for any leader, right, talking to the public becomes very important. Leadership is not just boardroom speaking and sales pitch. Leadership also means you go to convocations. Leadership also means you go and give leadership speeches. Leadership also means you might be having a YouTube channel where you share a lot of gyan, whatever it is, right? So public speaking is an important part of leadership today. And that is one more module. From that particular module, we move to, of course, the need of the hour, that is digital communication. And any communication post today, right, has to be and is and will be aware of platforms. And different platforms will have different strategies and different content. All platforms are not same. Each one has its own world and its own system. So you're going to have something called leveraging digital communication for leaders, right? And a little more discussion on this. I will hand it over to Dr. Roy once I go through the rest of the modules. So this is digital communication and more futuristic requirement. Of course, from digital, we move to another module, which would be the intercultural business communication. To be fair to business communication and B schools, intercultural business communication has been a traditional module of business communication from the time business communication has started in almost all B schools, right? And it becomes even more and more important in today's times when our economy is being considered no more just a global economy. It's more or less being termed as a multipolar economy. Let's not call it West versus the East, but we can definitely say or speak about the rise of the East. And I just do not mean China, not just China, of course. So intercultural business communication is, of course, different geographies and their different cultures. And then you're doing business across geographical landscapes. And then there are etiquettes and there are behavioral rules and there are cultural differences which we need to be careful of, which we need to be aware of, and that becomes an important part of this particular module. From then on, we move to something called data presentations. Data presentations, again, I would say more of a pet project for Dr. Roy there, but data presentations If I just leave it at a very superficial level, today, if you do any business analytics course, they hardly call it data analysis. They are now calling it data storytelling. So that is now an in thing. So how do you narrate? How do you present? How do you demonstrate decision making using data, right? And this is currently a data-driven world, or so does the trend point towards. From data presentations, what we do is we move to, again, a very fundamental space of leadership communication. And currently, it's even more so. And that is called leaders as conflict processors. See, we're not calling it as conflict resolutioners. We're calling it conflict processors, from which what you do is you resolve and you negotiate. So, of course, we're going to do negotiations. This is becoming and has always been and will be a very, very important part for any leader, because you have to negotiate and you either win the deal or you lose the deal, or there's a gray area in that. So even in that gray area, what do you do? And conflict resolutions within the organization and outside of the organization, how do you, I don't want to use the word handle conflicts, how do you process conflicts, and how are you comfortable with conflicts is something that we are going to look forward to and learn in this particular module, right? Again, what is specifically interesting about conflict processing modules and negotiations, these are now coming in from disciplines which are becoming very, very popular today. They are more from the behavioral sciences disciplines, right? Organization behavior, the behavioral science angle of marketing, the behavioral science angle of strategy, more from behavioral strategy, more from behavioral marketing. It is from those kinds of spaces this module is being prepared and shared with you. From this particular module, we move into, of course, another very highlight module here. It's called storytelling. However, there's a clause used here, in the digital era. So, of course, you're doing storytelling. And storytelling, I'm sure Dr. Roy will agree with, or maybe she would be more eloquent in talking about this. Storytelling is a very overused, or may I say a very abused and over-abused word, but nevertheless, it has existed, it exists, it will exist, because with all its abuse and use and leveraging in the right and wrong and whatever manner, it still stands strong. And it is what human communication is all about. With all the tech and all the politics that could be there in and around everything, right? Stories are important, and stories become very powerful tools of navigating almost any landscape, business or otherwise. And particularly in a digital era, what is it that makes stories different? There'll be more discussion on this from Dr. Roy, but I'm just leaving it at this. From storytelling in digital era, we move to something called communication and analytics. Again, analytics, of course, see, today it is about data-driven insights, data-driven decisions, data-driven leadership, data-driven stories, and hence, how do you analyze data? And here, when data is communication. So what this module tries to do, and that is why it is a big differentiator in a certain way, is we're not just going to tell you how to use communication as tools. We are trying to tell you how you read the tools to understand and predict markets. Communication itself is a data. Communication itself is a giveaway. Communication itself is an indicator of market research, right? So that's where this particular module comes in. From here, we move to our key addition for this new batch, which is going to get formed, and that is going to be communication with, in brackets, out, that is with and without AI, right? So, of course, when you have tech tools doing the job for you, they can prepare your CVs, they can prepare your presentations, they can even prepare your pitch. Do you know how to make them prepare it? Do you know how to get them to make and build that impact into your communication? It has a lot to do with the kind of prompts you give. It has a lot to do in you asking the right questions. It also has a lot to do with how you use it. And then when it produces what it does, you need to be critically aware of how good that stuff is that's been given to you. So it could just be, a draft on which you work, or it could be something in terms of you're really, really tech oriented and you are fascinated with it. It's nice to see how you can train it to do something better than what it does. Right. And again, Dr. Roy would be the best person to talk about this more. And I'll come to that as to why. And finally, again, this almost seems like a Dr. Roy's module again. This is gamification here. I don't think I'm going to get too much into this. Not that gamification is something very, very new. It's been there for a long time. But again, like stories and digital, gamification is now essentially becoming more and more important, and Dr. Roy will take that forward. I would say in short, after this very, very long discussion on the modules, since there are two aspects to communication here. One is the traditional and traditional part of it, the foundations and fundamentals part of it, which is going to be more in terms of strategy, behavior, right? And processing of meaning and data. On the other side, you have the more futuristic angle, which is more going to be the digital, the tech, the gamification, right? And the AI angle. So I would request Dr. Roy to please expand on the future side of it. Over to you.
Unmute myself. Yeah. Thank you, Professor Rath, for taking us through the module. It's like all the signposts of the program. You mapped it very nicely. You could just driving around like in a Google map thing or something like that. Yeah. So broadly, what Professor Rath just said, there are the traditional paths and there are the future paths, but a lot of thought has gone into how each module talks to each other. And this talking to is immensely important, because without understanding pitch, or it's also not just important, it's again how creatively you use it. How can you combine gamification and pitch, or analytics and storytelling, to leverage the maximum out of your communication skills? The first module that I would talk about a little bit is in the digital era. What we are talking about, again, differentiation, is the platformization. So tech communication now exists in various platforms, and there is a lot of research which shows us that there is a generational differentiation in platforms as well. So if you want to reach out to the audience of a certain age, slightly older audience, I guess, not being ageist here, if I am, sorry, maybe you go to Facebook. If you want to reach out to your bleeding heart millennials, perhaps Instagram is the place to be. For the Gen Zs, again, there are emerging platforms like Discord or Twitch, where a lot of organizations have not ventured yet. But looking at the growth of platforms like Discord and Twitch, it is only a matter of time when even legacy organizations have to venture there to talk to a new audience. This module is precisely on that. We talk about how, or we equip you with, we make you familiar with each of these platforms and what works in these platforms. Professor Rath said something very, very important, that in 2023 and then going to 24, let's say, 27, 28, it's important to be sensitive about what you are saying, what you're putting out there. But like she said, the word that is the key word here is it should be meaningful. It should not just be performative. So if you are talking now, there's a lot of, if you go to any website of your big four consultancy firms, etc., two words in the alphabet soup that will sort of glow in front of you. One is ESG and the other is DEI. When we are talking about DEI today, we are primarily focusing on the spectrum of sexuality. We are talking about, there's increasingly a lot more conversation about queer politics, understanding queer notions, speaking to, that's what we are largely thinking of when we are talking about diversity and inclusion, which is earlier it was more gender based, and now of course the gender spectrum comes into play. In the next 5 years, it is perhaps going to be, the conversation might be more centered around neurodiversity, which is again something that you will find if you talk to a 20-year-old or a 16, 17-year-old, which are the next generation, I think, after Gen Z. So you will find that your audience, now you might say that, okay, why do we need to talk to them? They are either already your primary stakeholders, or they are working with you, or in the next 5 years they are going to work with you, or they are going to use your products, avail of your services. So there is an imminent need to understand this, and that is what we try to do in this module on communication in different digital platforms. Which are the spaces? What are the ways in which language or the way in which the language is constructed in these spaces? Next, when we are talking about the more future side of communication, is data storytelling or data presentation, whatever you want to call it. If you have noticed, companies these days, why does Zomato at the end of year flood your mailbox saying the dish that you ordered most all year was biryani, or you ordered 68 plates of biryani? Maybe that's just me, but I think Spotify will tell you have listened to music from 80 artists from 6 different continents. People love Spotify Wrapped. Increasingly, and this is kind of a fork in the path there, because on one hand, we are concerned about our own privacy, the way we have become data points essentially, and how that is used and leveraged by big corps. On the other hand, this data is being framed and structured into a story and thrown right back at us, and we are lapping it up and quite happy about it as well. So what is it about data? Because if you think, and again, there is a lot of research in neuroscience. It's an interesting field that human beings are not able to actually process a lot of data or huge numbers. Once, any corporate presentation, we see it with our students as well, across various programs, there is a certain kind of overuse of data. But what this module will try to do is, again, how can we make that data meaningful to the audience? You might throw much data at me. Why will I be interested in it? Why should I think about it? Why will I, or how will I understand it better? So what Spotify does is actually a great lesson in data storytelling, making your end user care about the data that you have gathered from them for 365 days. Storytelling, again, I don't have much to add. Professor Rath actually spoke of what my pet peeve actually is. That is, I keep complaining that this term is being overused and abused, and I don't like it. But one has to face up to the fact that it is right now, and in the foreseeable future will continue to be what we call a mega trend. Every organizer, everyone wants to do storytelling, or leadership storytelling, brand storytelling, this storytelling, that storytelling. So we go back and we look at, we try to look at the origins, look at the formats. We do something called story narrative discourse, that how does a story become a narrative? How does a narrative then become the dominant discourse? Once there is a dominant discourse, what are the ways of getting alternative narratives to inflect that dominant discourse, which is again, in strategy, perhaps you would know, in business strategy, etc. It's about finding new spaces to have new ideas and start new work. One of the perspectives of understanding that is the discourse narrative story perspective. We do that, and especially in the digital era, we talk about something called transmediality. How do you move from one medium to the other? In fact, today, with so many mediums open to you, if you have, if you watch OTT, let's say you go to Netflix, look at I think we spend more time trying to decide what to watch rather than plunging into the content. So transmediality is about understanding the different medium, the importance of the medium in crafting and positing the content. That sort of brings us, I think, gamification, again, no AI, with or without, like I said, and like Professor Rath also reiterated, what she was saying is, yes, there is technology, but how do you use it? Yes, you have a tool. ChatGPT is a tool. How do you leverage the best from it? Because it is also something, it's basically a large language model. And again, in the next few years, we are going to see more and more large language models. There are problems with it, of course, I'm not going there. Search is going to be integrated, Bing is already integrated with large language, LLM processing, etc. So how does one know how to use it? Like Professor Rath said, asking the right questions, asking ChatGPT to frame something properly. So any tool, right from the hammer and the nail to a computer, let's say, it's about, again, the human element is about how do you use the tool rather than to think that the tool will do everything for me. This is still a tool. It's still not generative AI. It's still large language model AI. Then we go into our last module, which is gamification. Gamification is something that, again, is not a mega trend like storytelling, but in our conversations with people from the industry and looking generally at the landscape around us, gamification is going to be increasingly more important. We are already gamified. The minute you look at your phone when you wake up in the morning and see, who has sent you a WhatsApp text, or you look and wait, is the gray tick turning into a blue tick, or you shop on Amazon and you are nudged to move something from the cart to making that purchase decision because it's a lightning deal and 15 minutes or 14 minutes, 30 seconds are left, or you're shopping for, some gear at Decathlon, and the minute you put something in the cart, there's a message which says that 17,000 people have this towel in their cart right now. So you better, just buy that towel. You are already living a very gamified life. But the thing is, gamification is all about, and all of these methods and techniques of gamification come from games at a broader sense, but particularly from video game design and development. So what we do again here is we are not going to talk only about, there's something called, there's a lot of critique of gamification. There's something called exploitationware, software, hardware exploitationware, which says that gamification isn't exploitative. It's making you behave. So people behave in the ways they would behave in a video game in a non-game like situation. That is gamification. So we try to bring in the understand and talk about the best practices of video game development, because it's a very interesting industry. In a time, in a world where content is becoming increasingly shorter, we don't have the patience for 3-hour films. We have 90 minutes or 50-minute episodes, or we don't have patience for 3-minute videos. We have 10-second reels on TikTok or Instagram. So while the general mega trend in the content narrative market is towards shorter and shorter content, there is one entire industry which is still based, and a AAA game which you buy and you play, the playtime of a standard AAA video game is 35 to 40 hours minimum, and people are spending 70 hours, 90 hours, 110 hours on playing one game. So there is a lot to learn, particularly about engagement. So what is, again, Professor Rath was talking about argumentation. How do video games argue with you and make you sit on the chair and push you through 70 hours of content, when elsewhere you don't have the patience to watch even a 1-minute video? You're watching it on 1.5 speed. Those are the questions that we try to answer and ultimately come away with certain techniques of, again, you don't need high tech to apply or employ gamification in your practice. So we learn those techniques, and I think that's the last module of the course. Professor Rath, if I have missed out anything that you would want to add. I could see you punching gesture. Then, oh, I didn't see the thumb. I was like, okay. All right.
Right. I think, thank you, Professor Rath and Professor Nandita. I mean, this is what I meant by, it's a very different program. Such insightful, mind-blowing, eye-opening insights into the various aspects and perspectives of communication. I think this is what you will get in this program. So I think we've spoken a lot. I guess we need to hear back from you, and we look forward to some questions. You can please raise your hands. And to start with, since we don't have any hand raises right now, you can just unmute and ask a question. But in the meanwhile, you can go on to the more button and then press the hand raise and kind of raise hands, and we will kind of schedule questions with you. So please feel free to ask. I mean, any one of you could. I think we had some questions from the chat. So maybe Saurabh, Naveen, you could start off. Please feel free. Just unmute your mic and go ahead. Yeah, Naveen, you can.
Yeah. Good evening to everyone. It's been a great session. I've been listening for the past, 45 minutes or so. So, I'm also into teaching, and I'm also working as an associate professor. So it becomes a great challenge in today's generation, especially when we are trying to convey something. People take it in multiple dimensions. And is there something, because, and one more thing is that there is always when you try to communicate across people, you have that community feeling towards the mother tongue alone. People are confined that they are very comfortable in a particular language, and they want things to happen through that language only. So all these kind of things gets into a lot of complications, and it is quite serious when we are handling especially students. And the faculty who communicates in their local language is very comfortable. Students are very happy about it. When faculty is not able to communicate in local language, they don't want to listen to those faculty. So all these kind of things are becoming a big challenge today. And since we are having, as faculty said in this webinar as well, so we have lots of channels and mediums to communicate across people. But still, it is my question is very simple: is that how do we really make it a very transparent strategies in terms of addressing people overall, so that we will be able to make it a point to reach out to the goal. So we need to reach out to the goal with ease. So that is my question: how to improvise communication with such type of community oriented people. Thank you.
Thank you, Naveen, for your question. I
My
think we do struggle with this every day. Not in terms of language. I have not had that because where we teach, the medium of instruction is very clearly still English, and I think that's the point of a lingua franca, to have a common language that everyone does understand. When we are talking about other languages, how to, that would be a very specific problem, because if someone doesn't understand the language I am speaking in, that immediately perhaps makes it my prerogative, especially if I am teaching, to try and communicate in a language that is more understandable, that the student will perhaps identify with. So that becomes, so their language is a barrier, and that requires intervention at a completely different level. That if you have in one college a clearly delineated medium of instruction, there should be some kind of training, etc., perhaps, to ensure that students are receptive to that particular medium. As far as your questions, I think the second part was talking about different platforms. See, again, now I think we have gone beyond language only. Sometimes I feel the way emojis are used, for example, some emojis mean completely different things. They do not abide by their literal meaning as you can see it. So if I am sending someone the emoji of space invaders, space invader does not mean space invader, it means something else. So again, I think it's up to us to and also with the limited bandwidth that each one of us has, how much do we want to interact, how much do we want to communicate, and to learn that. These are like learning new languages. So if you are on a platform like Discord, for example, in gaming servers on Discord, people will often say AFK. What does AFK mean? Just means away from keyboard, that I can't type right now, but I can hear. So again, these are things that you perhaps live and learn if you have the interest and the bandwidth too. I think, but the language problem, of course, is a much more serious issue. And see, again, I would say that with the different languages and leading to teaching different communities, etc., different regions, this is going to be something that is there. It's up to us and how we adapt and how we react to it.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Very kind of you.
Naveen, if I may just take it forward from what Dr. Roy said. During COVID, when we were teaching, and you must be
Yes.
also teaching then, right? And it would be a
Yes, ma'am.
platform. It would probably be a Zoom, I'm assuming.
Yes, yes,
And if
absolutely.
it is, one of the typical things that students wrote on the chat, whenever a question was asked, and if they probably got it wrong, then they used to write "my bad," right? So
All right.
I had to really go back and find out what that means, because that's not a language I use. And then I realize it means, I'm sorry, I got it wrong. That's what it means. So in a way, this also helps us as teachers to get updated with the kind of language they use. And at the same time, it also depends on us how much of that language is required to be used by us. So for instance, if I have to teach them to write formal business letters in organizations, which is still about formal language, at least I can tell them, do not use "my bad." But where you can use it, I will say that's the thing to do. And one more thing, just to kind of consolidate all of it together, maybe, but organizations and schools and colleges don't do it, but I think these could be important verticals later on in education sectors, we could have something called community-centered language learning sessions. The differences in language, have this discussed. Even students need to be aware that professors do not know all the languages being used, as much as professors need to be aware that students also need to know other kinds of languages which they probably don't use in their particular spaces where they use. So that awareness should be kind and meaningful rather than judgmental. Then your students become good friends with you, and you just grow younger and they grow older with you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have an interesting question from Vikash Kumar. Actually, Vikash, if you are here, I see that you're there. You can, you could unmute and ask the question yourself. But while you're doing that, the question that he's asked is, what kind of ongoing support or benefits can participant expect after completing the program? Example, in terms of getting recording of the sessions, contents which would be there. Can we email and get feedback on queries which could come post completion of course to professors? So Vikash, you can unmute and you can talk, and meanwhile I've shared the question, faculty. Professor. Yeah, Vikash.
No, thanks for speaking on it. That's the exact query I have.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm taking the first part, right? Vikash, your first question is, what kind of ongoing support or benefits can participants expect after completing the course? Example, do we get the recorded sessions contents, which would change for next year batch? Can we email, get feedback on any queries which comes post completion of course to professors? All right. Nice futuristic requirements of the course. During the course, right? The video sessions are like the replacement of live classes, right? So the idea of long duration program, all right, now this goes to a little more historical aspect of IIM Calcutta, Vikash. Currently, these online programs, we call it long duration programs, right? LDPs. There is a overlying protocol for all these programs. It's a policy decision. So this is basically, if I'm not wrong, it's called asynchronous and synchronous. There are certain terminologies for it. This program, or generally all the long duration programs of IIM Calcutta as of now in 2023 and early 2024, I can't talk about 24 later half in 25. We'll come to that when we do come to that. The video sessions, that is the sessions like this one happening. Suppose this was a class, it would be a 3 hours class, and it is the replacement of a live classroom, physical classroom. So the video recording will not be available to you unless you missed the class and there is some kind of rules and regulations. And if you're interested in the program, I'm sure VC Now and IIM Calcutta would provide you all the rules and regulations for it. And when you have examinations, probably you can watch some of the videos beforehand. Are these videos, lecture videos, available for you once the course gets over? No, because they're not designed as, for instance, they're not like Coursera lectures where the professor goes to a studio, gets himself or herself recorded, and it's out there in the market. It's not like that. We are interacting live, and it's like a live teaching session. Hence, it's not recorded material to be shared. As far as the handouts and the books and the content for that particular course, it's available to you, of course. But beyond the course, is it available after that? No. It stops once the course gets over, and the new content and material is available to the next batch. But you can always get in touch with your juniors, right? And get in touch with and have access to all the new content that comes in. Vikash, did I answer your question? Sorry.
And the second part is,
How does the program
personalized feedback?
Yeah, ensure personalized feedback, and how is the success from this course measured beyond passing midterm and end-term exam? I think I'll need some help from Dr. Roy, but I'll just begin. Personalized feedback, yes, all your presentations, all your exams, right? You get personalized feedback, written or personal. So you do. And how is the success from this course measured? You will tell us after that. You come back and tell us it worked for you. Dr. Roy, anything else you want to add here?
No, yes, just that we have this in the public speaking module as well as the communication analytics module. We have presentations. We have individual. There's one individual examination that is each of you have to prepare, that instructions are given, then you speak. We do give individual feedback to all the participants. One. Second, even for the group presentations that you do, you receive feedback on your content, on the presentation and everything. So yes, personalized feedback is definitely given.
Right.
Thanks, Professor Roy and Professor Rath. I guess that answers the question. But a follow-up question is, how many group presentations or how many case studies will we have? Will it happen in every session, or is it going to be limited to only midterm and end-term examinations?
Every module will have an examination. And it's not just the two of us teaching, there will be other faculty. And faculty will tell you how they want to examine you on the module. So it might be a presentation, it might be a submission. This course does not have midterm and term. Okay, there are examinations after every module for which you will be given grades. So, and case studies, faculty depends on individual faculty. Some will be using case studies, some will be using other pedagogic methods and tools. Yeah, but plenty of case studies in general, I think. But yeah.
Understood, Professor. That was very helpful.
Sorry.
Yes, Professor.
Yeah. Sorry, Vikram. Just wanted to add to what Dr. Roy said, and before we take Saurav's question, Dr. Roy mentioned we'll have different instructors. So it's just not both of us, right? We're doing the webinar, of course, but you're going to have faculty from the marketing group. You're going to have faculty from the organization behavior group. You're going to have, of course, faculty from the communication side. You'll have faculty from the strategy side, right? You'll have maybe faculty from the economics group. So it's a very diverse set of instructors who are coming in. And the instructors are coming in because they are the experts for that module. It's not that somebody comes and just teaches gamification. The person who actually researches and works in that particular space is the instructor for that particular module. It'll be like that.
Right? Thank you, Professor. That answers.
So the styles will be different. Content will be different. Different people have different styles, right? So it's not going to be standardized.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, Saurav.
Okay. Yes, Saurav. Go ahead.
Yeah. My question is, these are regarding the duration and the course fee for this particular program. And that arises because I might have missed a part of this presentation. So these two questions.
Sure. Actually, we were going to put up a summary, program at a glance, but we'll do that in the end also. So the program is a 6 months program, online program. Classes are delivered every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. While this is an online program, I guess all of you all will understand that this requires some kind of face time also. So there are 2 campus sessions. The program begins or will have a campus session after the program begins online. There will be a campus session of 4 days in the IIM Calcutta campus. And when the program culminates, the program will culminate with a campus session of 3 days at the IIM Calcutta campus. Post which, after successful completion, you get your executive education alumni status as well as your certification from IIM Ahmedabad. Sorry, IIM Calcutta. The program fees is 3,20,000 plus GST payable over 3 installments. And we do have education loan facilitation partners, if somebody has, wants to look at a kind of EMI-based payment also. So this is kind of, program in a snapshot, right?
Okay. Yeah. Somak Ray also answered that part of the question. Thanks, Somak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, thanks, sir.
Yeah. So we can, and so we can go on to the next question.
I only had this question. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Okay. Right. Yes, somebody, anybody else? I think
I have one more question. Sorry.
Yeah.
Wanted to check if you have any alumni group, such as WhatsApp groups or anything like that, who have completed this course, or will we be added after we complete this course?
Yes, absolutely. So once you complete the program, you also have the executive education alumni status from IIM Calcutta. You will get an alumni, portal link where you will be able to connect and network with the executive education alumni across the IIM Calcutta programs, which is very potent, considering that they're all senior executives across various kind of, sectors within India and maybe even abroad. And of course, the the WhatsApp group continues, along with your own batch. And if you have, so every batch will always have some connects with the earlier batches, and therefore you will be able to reach out to people within the earlier batches also. Likewise, the next batch will also connect with you. So, yes, I think you will be able to kind of, leverage the network and the community in a manner that you would want to.
Okay, thanks, Suresh.
Yeah. I think Shiabuddin Abdul Khader, you had some question? Anybody?
How much would be the course fee?
Yeah, it's 3 lakh. Let me be correct. 3,20,000 plus 18% GST payable over 3 installments. And we have executive education or education loan facilitation partners also.
All right.
Hey, this is Shihab. Sorry, I didn't have a question. I'm sorry, I don't know whether if I touched something. My apologies.
Okay, no problem. Yeah. Right. Anybody else? Amit, would you have any questions? Fine, then if there are no questions, I guess we assume that, it's all clear. So I think before we end, let me ask Shreyashi to share the program at a snapshot, so that Shreyashi, you could share the program in a snapshot so that, people can take a look at that at leisure.
Yes.
Then we could kind of call it a day. Yeah.
I hope this is visible to everybody.
Yes, you can take us through.
Yes, so the name of the program is something that we have been discussing from the very beginning, definitely. It's an executive program in communication strategies for corporate leaders, EPCSCL for short. The duration of the program is 6 months, and to be eligible for the program, you need to be a working professional. You can be either employed or self-employed with an experience profile of 8 years. Educational qualification wise, you need to be at least a graduate in any discipline with 50% and plus marks, right? So the mode of delivery for the program would definitely be live online over D2D mode, which means that you can access the live online classes from the comfort of your home or your office, whatever the option may be, right, at your end. And definitely, as we were discussing, we will also be having a total 7 days of interactions on the IIM Calcutta campus, at the IIM Calcutta campus rather. The initial campus module would be of 3 days, followed by the second campus module of 4 days duration, totaling to 1 week at IIM Calcutta. And if I may take the liberty of just adding on my experience to this. So when you come to the IIM Calcutta campus, you would be meeting the professors, each of the professors who will be taking you through the program, and the interaction which happens in person is going to enrich you to a great extent, as we all can appreciate, right? Moving ahead with the session timings, the session would be happening on weekends, precisely on Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., making it convenient for people who usually are quite occupied during the weekdays. We are all working professionals here, definitely. The total course fee for this program is 3,20,000 plus GST, payable in 3 easy installments. As already mentioned earlier, if any of you want to get in touch with our financing partners, we do have such options as well. You can get in touch with them if you need any assistance on that part. And the program commences in January 2024. Now, when we talk about the program commencing in January 2024, we need to keep in mind the nature of the program, which requires us to keep a cap on the total number of participants in every cohort, right? So we do have limited seats available, and the ongoing registration cycle that we are in at the moment is ending on 30th of November, about 5 days from now. So if you are interested in this, definitely, I'm sure you would want more information. We would anyway be getting in touch with you. We will be sending you some details. You can also get in touch with us over these numbers. I'll just share the numbers on screen. Yeah, I hope this is visible. You have the number and the email ID as well of Somak Ray, who is the program manager for this particular program. You can call him directly as well, right after the webinar. If you have any queries on the program details, please feel free to mention it either in the chat box, or you can even unmute yourself and ask.
Okay, thank you, Shreyashi. So if there aren't any other questions, which I don't see, and if nobody's actually asking, then I think we'd like to thank Professor Pragyan Rath and Professor Nandita Ray actually for the insightful, mind-blowing, and lovely perspective on how one could look at leadership communication from so many different disciplines, so different perspectives, and how one can leverage it to kind of drive influence over authority. And so thank you very much, professors, for taking your time off, and thank you everybody for your time actually. And like Shreyashi mentioned, I think we'll be getting in touch with you and look forward to interested candidates kind of applying for this program. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teres, Shreyashi,
Yeah.
Shomak.
Thank you,
Right.
Professor.
Mother.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you
you very
very
much.
Right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Take care. Bye.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for joining, everyone. As mentioned, we will be getting in touch with you for any queries that you might have. You are free to note down the number and contact us directly as well. Thank you for joining in. Have a great evening ahead.